Rakesh ji, please, for Guru Mantra.
Good evening, everyone. I think this is one of the most difficult negotiations that one can ever do, and I think the reality of our life is that we have a situation which is completely out of control on for retailers, for mall owners, and for everybody. There has been a lockdown. Revenues have become zero, and that's the revenues that the brands have not generated, retailers have not generated. Correspondingly, there's a revenue shortfall across the board, and this is a phenomena which has happened all over the world, right? I think it's been a little disappointing because it's not just the malls or the high street or retail where the rent is a problem. The rent is a problem in many other businesses in this country. Wholesale businesses are also based on rental shops. They are suffering. They have a challenge. There is a problem across some of the factories have a problem. Warehouses have a problem. So this is being there's a big challenge everywhere in India. This is a challenge which is there across the world. It's not that this is a very India specific situation. Rent is a very huge challenge across the world. And across the world, we've seen various steps taken by various governments to intervene. UK, Spain, Germany, each one of them, as part of their COVID fighting laws, legislations have come in, which not only protect landlords, but it also protects tenants, so that there is a continuity of business, there's continuity of jobs. This is what has happened everywhere in the world. It's been unfortunate that in our country, we've not had any such support from the government. None of these laws are addressing the commercial part, which is the negotiation that happens between a landlord and a tenant. What they do is to just protect continuity of business. They protect continuity of jobs, which is what these laws really are all about. In fact, UK is in the process of releasing certain principal guidance now, which will get released tomorrow, which defines as to how negotiations should happen between a landlord and a tenant in terms of how to tackle the lockdown period, because rents have not got paid even there, despite the companies and all those values which exist out there also. Less than 50% of the rents have been paid in the UK for the lockdown period. In New York, the largest property developer has received less than 20% of the rent from there. And these are very evolved parts of the world where interest costs are lower, etc. I think the malls definitely have a challenge. They have running costs. There are costs related to they have financial obligations to bank. There's no question about it. LRDs are there, and this is something that so is the problem. Same problem exists for majority of the businesses. They are also sitting on interest costs. I think we heard last week Supreme Court really questioning the whole idea about why should there be an interest for the lockdown period, and has actually issued a notice to the government seeking their input as to why there should be an interest for the lockdown period. The same could be a question tomorrow to the landlord. Why should there be a rent for a lockdown period? Now, I don't know, but there is a challenge on hand. I think the reality of life is the fact that the customer is far more important. We all recognize the problem. I think the malls recognize the problem. I think the retailers recognize the problem. We recognized it. We tried to come together earlier, try to kind of find an answer, saying the fact that what could be done together, how could we collaborate between malls and retailers, so that we can create a framework which sort of created an entire focus on, as and when the lockdown gets lifted, how we could sort of focus on really bringing the customer back into the malls. So here we are spending so much time a day before the malls are going to be allowed to be open, thinking about what should we be doing on rent, thinking about what should we be doing on the camp charges, rather than anybody really spending any time to say, will the customer really come tomorrow to the malls? Will he be there? Will he really come and shop? What do we need to do to create comfort among him? None of this has happened, but this is the way we do business. Everybody wants to leave it to the last, except for Forum. So we must acknowledge what the Forum group has done. I strongly believe, Ali, that all the retailers really appreciate the effort done by the Forum group. All retailers will definitely open up their stores at the Forum Prestige malls across the country. I think You being a retailer made a big difference, without a doubt. Only if that kind of a model could be followed, all of us could have spent the entire afternoon today discussing what do we do to get the customers back to the malls, rather than spending so much time discussing the rent and camp charges.
Absolutely.
Fact is, there's a loss in the industry. The whole retail industry is at a loss. We have all lost money, and it's all about sharing the loss among ourselves. This is what needs to be done now. There is nobody who can gain out of this. It's fundamental that if there's a cost to run the mall during the lockdown period, so was the cost to run a retailer's office. So was the cost to ensure the fact that all the manpower that exists at the retailer's end. Retailers have also had lost a lot of money. In fact, the survival of the retailer himself is a challenge. So if I had to be given a task as to how do you sort of resolve it, I think the bigger focus needs to be in terms of how does both the retailer and the mall survive through this period. How do we sort of really work collaboratively to bring in the customer back into the stores? And at the same time, when we look at the losses that we have all incurred in the last 3 months, how do we sort of over a period of time really collate our profits together and to share it back among each other, so that none of us really lose that much money, because even the malls deserve to really get some money back as and when we make some more profits in the future, and they should get some money back for the lockdown period. At the same point of time, clearly none of the brands and the retailers are in a position to today pay for the lockdown period. That's a reality. Because if they start paying rents today, if they start paying camp charges today, because the cash has all disappeared, there's so much more work to be done. The losses on inventory is going to be massive. And to bring in new set of inventory itself is going to be very challenging, because the factories have remained shut. The entire supply chain has got disrupted. This problem is not getting solved in the next 2 months, 3 months. This problem is going to be here till March, maybe April. And there's nothing to do with COVID. Even if COVID disappears out of our life, I think the people who run apparel business specifically, I can say that everybody recognizes there's a supply chain timing effect which comes into our lives, and that is not going to get solved in 2 months. It is going to take about 5-6 months before you will come back to track. So as far as I think, more or less the entire autumn-winter season, to a very large extent, the supply chain is going to be disrupted, which means the fact that business, even if COVID goes out of our life, business may not be at the same level as we want it to be there at a later date. So, but of course, the first priority is to create comfort around customers, convince him that malls is the right destination to come in. Malls will be the place where you will feel safer. From whatever little one has seen in terms of wherever high streets have opened, and high streets have opened from 17th, 18th of May onwards, it's very encouraging. It's very small towns. Very clearly, the business has been much better there because the fear of the virus is significantly lower. But in the larger towns, there is a struggle because public transport doesn't exist, and movement of people has continued to remain restricted, and that's the way it is going to be for some more time. So we are going to have a challenge. The malls will not be having the same destination feel that one had in the past. It will take some time before them to become the same destination as they were there before, in sometime in February. So this is a journey which requires collaboration, which requires sharing of pain, and then in the spirit of partnership, I think we have to create a framework where, as and when you earn more money in the future, as and when the market sort of recovers fully, we all can share it together. But I think the other thing, all of us have to recognize something which has never happened in our working life, right? None of us actually have any experience in managing recession of the magnitude that we are headed towards, right? None of us have really spent time or understood how to run a business which is going to be sort of degrowing, and degrowing at a very large pace. We don't have any. All our contracts are designed only for growth. The contract that we have is all about growth. This will grow. We were all very confident, and we've very, very clearly signed such contracts. But that could change, and that could change if you go by what the RBI ended up discussing, which was minutes which were released on Friday. If that is that's the future that we all have to manage, I think this is not going to get solved in the next 2 to 3 months. Let's become more mature. Let's accept the reality that is in front of us, and let's see how all of our businesses survive together in a collaborative framework. That's what my thought to everybody here is.